Okay, scholars. So we're going to start our lesson today talking a little bit about the things we talked about yesterday. So we're going to do a quick review, okay? So I want you to look at the this little goal sheet so we can remind ourselves what are the goals that we're trying to learn here. So the first one, Cassidy, will you read that for us again? Archaeologists.
Orally and in writing form.
Can you read the second goal for us?
I can evaluate what artifacts tell us about the parts by illustrating my own artifact.
Okay, so I think we're close to accomplishing these goals. I would say the first one, we can talk about the role of an archaeologist. So I'm going to ask that if you need to, I want you to write down on this piece of paper what an archaeologist does, okay? Explain to me what an archaeologist does from yesterday. You can use your word work vocabulary from yesterday if that'll help you. We're going to review this one first to see what does an archaeologist do. Bless you. All right, what do we have here? Okay. You got yours finished? I'll give this back to you. You're going to read it to me.
No?
Not yet. We're waiting for Cassidy. Okay, let's start with Otto. Otto, what did you write?
An archaeologist is a person who searches artifacts.
Good. What did you write?
An archaeologist's job is to look for old artifacts and to the museum.
Good. Awesome. So we are really close. I would say this first goal, can we explain what our archaeologist does in written form and by talking? Did you just do that? You just did that. So let's go ahead and take this little pencil and next in the box next to the first goal where it says I can explain the role of archaeologists orally and in written form, you just did that to me. So we're going to put a check box or a check mark or a yes in that box because that goal is checked. Good job. So the thing we're going to work on today is the second goal. Today we're going to evaluate what artifacts tell us about the past by illustrating your own artifacts. Okay, so remember yesterday, before we left each other, we talked about what if 200 years from now somebody found something about you? And what would those items tell them about you? So before we do that, let's go back into our text, okay? Let's look at our text again. You should be looking at this. This is what I mean, okay? So we looked at this chapter and we read this whole chapter, right? And then we started reading the other chapters. So let's go ahead and review a little bit about what we read so that that can help us with this second goal and the activity we're going to do with the second goal. So I'd like for us to work together to use the text that we just read to answer this question, and I'm going to actually write your responses on here. So my question is, what do artifacts found by archaeologists teach us about the past? What do you guys think? And you can go back and look in your text as well to go review what we read yesterday. what were some things we were able to learn about the past when archaeologists found some artifacts? That's one answer. What do artifacts found by archaeologists teach us about the past? What are some things we learned about the past? And you can go back and look in the text from yesterday as well. And remember, the other thing that we can go look at was we read this and then we go over to the artifacts one, facts about artifacts. That might be a helpful place to go. Going. This one. Yep, so look there too. What did we find out? What do artifacts found by archaeologists teach us about the past? What did you find out?
Plus, the archaeologists teach us about the past, like persons that die, but they are still there.
People who lived long ago. So one of the things, I think, was because they found actual people, right? And based on finding actual people, we learned some things about them long ago. Do you remember one of the examples that they gave us in the textbook? What did we find out about feet because of footprints? Do you remember that footprint example? What did it tell us? And I showed you my stinky foot yesterday.
That it was a family.
Good. So we knew families traveled together. How many? Do you remember how long ago that was?
It was 2005.
I think it was longer than that. Go look at the footprints one. There it is. 3 million years ago. Okay, keep looking. What else? What else do artifacts teach us?
The artifacts teach us about old animals, like dinosaurs.
Good. Old animals. And how they lived. What about, there were 3 important questions that we can answer about people. I'm going to show you where to find this, because this is a really important question. Let's go back to the, I think it's in the facts about artifacts one. Go to the facts about artifacts section. The facts about artifacts, yeah. I think you might have gone too far, yeah. This one. So there are 3 questions I want us to focus on that the past can teach us about people. Well, what is this? Remember this? This is something we can learn. What was that?
Stone axe.
So we can learn about what kind of tools people use to build and do the things that they did, right? What about, this is what I'm looking for. Ugh, creepy. Remember, what about this one? Remember this one? What else did we learn about the past there?
That they games.
Yeah, they played games. So we could learn what kids played back then. We could learn their language and their art. Good, we're getting it, we're remembering. We learned, what is that? It's pottery. So what sort of pottery and art did they make with their hands? Good. So the 3 questions, I actually don't remember where we read it, but I think it might have been up here. Let's look up here. Here we go. You are what you wear, you are what you own, and you are what you eat and live in.
Sometimes.
So we're looking at where they lived. So where they lived. So where do you live? What's your shelter? What is your shelter?
Houston.
Houston. You have a house?
Yeah.
What's it made out of?
Wood.
Wood, brick, somebody's brick, right? So where people lived is different. So where they lived, what kind of shelter they have. The next part is what do you own? Everything on you right now you own. Do you own these earrings, right? You own all of these things, right? So what you own is your stuff, right? So we can can learn about what people owned. What was owned. Anna was correct. We can also learn about what they ate. That's important. Remember the mummy example? How they figured out what was inside of the tomb? They buried them with food, so we can learn about their food. And then the last, what they wear is the question, right? What we wear tells us a lot about somebody. So clothes. So there's a lot of stuff we can learn about the past when we find artifacts. There are little clues we can dig up, piece together, and then we can tell a story about someone we never knew because we found their stuff. So what I want to do today is we are going to have a little art time, okay? I want you to, I have all sorts of stuff. I have paper, I have scissors, I have glue, I have construction paper, I have pretty little scrapbook paper. What I want you to do is I want you to think of 2 or 3 items that you currently own, you currently wear, you currently eat, or something you live. I want you to think about your life now, okay? And we're going to draw an artifact about us. And then we are going to talk about what would that artifact say about us if somebody found it 200 years from now. Okay? So pick what you want for art supplies. Pencils, markers, matte colors, glue. So start with one item and look at our list here about what we learned about the past. Think about what you own, what you eat, what you wear. Remember, we also had games, so a game was an option. Anything on our list or any of the artifacts we saw here, think about something that you own or you use right now. And draw that, illustrate that, and make it beautiful for me. What I want to do is I want you two to keep your artifacts a secret from each other, because then we're going to trade and we're going to guess. We're going to be archaeologists. And we're going to pretend that we found this item 200 years from now. I actually think I'm going to do this with you. It's okay, I'm not a good artist at all. 2 or 3, whatever you can think of. I'm not in art class. I could use an art class. Bobby, you know one of the first things I remember about you? When you were drawing your, remember the writer's portfolio? Do you remember what you drew? It was Venom. I remember your drawing of Venom. That was a long time ago, it feels like now. But I remember, I was like, that's actually pretty good. And I also thought that Venom was kind of scary. So I've seen that. That really scared me. one thing I wanted to talk about looking at your responses is I want us to remember too that archaeologists look for old stuff. They get them to the museum, but archaeologists also have to take that old stuff, right? And they have to be detectives, and they have to figure out, what does this item tell me about the past? So that's part of what an archaeologist is too. You know, they dig it up, they take it to the museum, but they also are detectives, and they figure out, what does this clue tell me about people in the past? Are you almost finished? Looks beautiful.
Three things or?
However, I've got two, because I couldn't think of a good third one. Okay, while you're working, I'm going to show you mine. I'm going to start talking a little bit. So let's remember, you are an archaeologist. 200 years in the future, Mrs. Marion is long gone.
No.
And you dig these things up. Okay, so what is this?
Books.
These are books, but look at the titles of these books. What does that say?
Pictures of dogs.
Okay, so first of all, what do the books tell you about me?
They like dogs.
I like dogs, and I like to read. I study a lot, it looks like. I like to be informed, right? What else did I like?
Garden.
How to garden, and what else? Music. But then you find this too. It's a guitar. It's actually, my husband has a lot of guitars, but I have a ukulele, which is like a tiny little guitar. So I like to try to teach myself hobbies like this. So if you found these things about me, you would know that, you would also know my language, right? You can tell my language because of the books that I was reading. You would know that music instruments from that time period looked a lot like music instruments from the past. So maybe 200 years from now, if you find a guitar that still looks like an old guitar, you know, well, guitars have stayed the same. They're using the same guitars then that they used in the past, right? Kathleen, are you finished?
Yes.
Yes?
I'm about to finish.
Otto's almost finished. All right, who wants to go first? Otto, show us yours. Let us
The
decide.
first one is my Lego house.
Okay, so that tells us a couple things. So we know what Otto and people like Otto, the toys they might have played with, right? So we can experience Legos.
I like to build.
Yeah, and there's Legos. Good. And then, oh yeah, we would find an iPhone and we would know, oh, technology. He used a phone. Technology was popular back then. Good. Does that make sense? Yeah, we're archaeologists solving mysteries. Kathleen, tell us about yours. What will we find out?
My phone.
Okay, also a phone. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's just say that this archaeologist was able to get into the phone and see what was inside of it. What would we learn about you? Why is the phone something that, how do you spend your time on your phone?
Sometimes playing
Playing?
and sometimes texting.
Texting, so we could see your language again, because we could see who you're texting. We would know maybe who your family was. Would we find some pictures maybe to learn a little bit more about you in there too? So those are some things that archaeologists could figure out about you using those clues. Good, what else did you put?
My bands.
Ah. So that's what you wear, right? So we can see what the style looked like. Very cool, that's something we could learn.
My toys.
And your toys? What are those? What kind of toys do you play with?
Book to draw, pencils, and my tiddlers.
So what would you learn about Katsuni, if you were an archaeologist and you found all of these artifacts, what would you say about Katsuni and how she lived?
She was a girl.
She was a girl. What about finding this? What's the book about? Drawing books and pencils. What would you assume about her?
She likes to draw.
She likes to draw, so there's art is something that she valued. What else was it?
Teddy bears.
Teddy bears. She was a girl. Good. Awesome job. So your artifacts. Let's go back to our goal sheet. The half sheet of paper where our goals are. Let's look at that goal one more time, and let's figure out if we figured out how to do this. This last goal. What does it say again? I can evaluate.
What artifacts tell us about and like illustrating my own artifacts.
So can you do that?
Yes.
Did you just do that? So yes, check. We did it too.
Yay!
So we learned what archaeologists do. We learned that archaeologists find artifacts, and those artifacts can teach us a lot of things about the past. Yeah? Awesome job, guys. That's it.
One time my dog was on my backyard and she found like a ball.
Oh yeah? Like dug up a ball?
Yes.
He's a little archaeologist too. That's awesome. Let me stop the video. Great job, you guys.